I find television to be very educating. Every time somebody turns on the set, I go into another room and read a book, said Groucho Marx. We are assembled here for the much awaited book, Leaders in the Making, the Crucible of Change Makers in Human Resources. The eminent authors, Dr. TV Rao and Dr. Arvind Agarwal, are here today to present lessons from the experiences of 30 eminent leaders, which is for parents, institutions, managers, business leaders, and the like. Words that you find in the book that have the power to influence and bring change in us. Even before the formal launch of this book, the book is already a bestseller on Amazon. Kudos to that, which is a great thing. We have Dave Ulrich on the call to speak to about HR to us, the relevance of the book, all of which is very endearing. Thank you, Dave. You're very special to us. Very special. That we have authors on the call is super good. That we have so many eminent leaders who are featured in the book is uber special. What is even more special than everything is that the authors have pledged the entire proceeds of the book, the royalty, to NHRDN to further the research in leadership. Very noble of them. Not much is known about this aspect of the book, so thank you. Very noble of you, Dr. Rao and Dr. Agarwal. A big salute to both of you. They say all good introductions are short and to the point. I will make one last statement and I promise to stop. J.D. Salinger, in his famous book, The Catcher in the Rye, said, "What really knocks me out in a book that when all is done reading it, you wish the author who wrote it was a terrific friend of yours and you could call him up on the phone whenever you felt like it." This doesn't happen much though. The advantage that we have is that these authors, great friends, great gurus, you can call them up on a phone anytime you would wish for. I hope I have set the cat amongst the pigeons. With this, let me get to speak about Dave. Dave Ulrich, who does not know Dave? Professor, author, speaker, coach, co-founder of RBL Group, written over 30 books, known as one of the top 10 HR gurus in the world, ranked #1 management educator and guru by Business Week, one of the top 21 Thinkers Hall of Fame, most influential HR influencer. More than anything, of all these accomplishments and accolades that he has, he's a great human being, a great friend of NHRDN, and a great friend of India. With this, over to you, Dave.
I think I should begin by lowering expectations. And it looks like on this call, given your introduction, Nathan, thank you. That was very, very generous. It looks like there are some people who have other people who watch television a lot, because Satish and Rajiv, your offices are full of books. And I really agree with the power of books. The word is mightier than the sword. And I also appreciate Nathan quoting Catcher in the Rye. If you remember, Nathan, that is a book about a young person developing their personal and sexual prowess. So Nathan, I appreciate your reminding us of what that book was about. And I remember reading that book as a young man. So thank you. I think books are so powerful, because I think ideas are in fact more powerful than the sword, and words make a difference. And what I was invited to do, and I hope I can share this quickly in your evening, put in context this incredible book. And so Arvind and TV, I'm so proud of the work you've done. But I was asked to spend just a few minutes talking about the setting, that why this book is so powerful. So I'm going to share a screen and some slides. You can obviously get copies of these slides by sending me a note or sending Nathan a note. You've got a copy of the slides. I want to talk about the setting in which this book occurs. Reinventing HR's future and leaders in the making who will make that reinvention happen. I'm going to talk about some ideas that I hope will have impact. I'm going to say this 2 or 3 times. One of the reasons I love this and other books, ideas are my best friends. By the way, I get in trouble when I say that because my wife, who put this picture on my shelf recently, said, I thought I was your best friend. And I said, you're a close second next to my ideas. By the way, that is not a good way to get oriented to your wife. But ideas are such incredible friends. And I'll talk about that. How do you see the trends in these ideas, then ideas with impact, and then the book Leaders in Making? And I'll spend a few minutes. We'll see if there are conversations. I'm the warm-up act to hearing from the authors of the book. That's who you came to hear from, but I'll be quick. Let's start with the world we live in. Anywhere we are in the world, in India, in China, in Latin America, in South America, in America, United States, the context is the kingdom in which we live. It's the setting. The content is the king or the queen, the action. You know the context as well as I do. The health and physical pandemic at the top left that seems to recur, even though we're getting close. That physical pandemic will lead and has led to an emotional endemic, where the mental health and emotional issues in many countries, political toxicity, where there's tension and political divisiveness. No question, we see a digital revolution. We're seeing government do regulatory reporting. This, for me, is one of the most exciting areas I've seen. If I had time, I'd share some of the research we're doing there. That because human capability is material, it's getting reported on in a rigorous way. We see intangible value, we see climate change, ESG, and we see the inevitable and tragic civil unrest and social change. In that unusual context, what's in the middle? The content is the king or the queen. What I'm going to call human capability. People, organization issues are now center stage because of the world in which we live. And there's been an evolution of that human capability, of the way we manage. In India, you've been part of that evolution. And I'll just tell you a very quick evolution. In gray on the left, personnel, terms and conditions of work, operational excellence. By the way, that continues. We've still got to do it. Then human resources, HR practices, functional excellence, staffing, training, development, human capital in red. We align our HR practices with strategy, and we build individual competence or talent. All of that continues. And then on the right-hand side, what I'm calling lately human capability. The evolution to human capability is twofold. It's not what we do inside the company. It's how what we do inside the company affects those outside. And it's not just about talent, it's about organization and leadership as well. That evolution is putting HR at center stage. And let me suggest 3 trends. 1, HR is not about HR, it's about creating value in the marketplace. When I go to HR groups, I often ask the question, who are the customers of HR? And the answer is usually the employees, the line managers who build strategy. And the answer is yes. And as a professor, the answer is incomplete. The customers of HR are also above the line. The customers of HR are the customers of your company. Or if you're in government, the citizens of the nation, the investors, the owners, either debt or equity or a parent company, the communities where we live and work, and partners. Our job in HR is not to do HR, it's to do HR so that we create value in the marketplace. I ask a question often when I do talks, what's the best thing HR can give an employee or a business leader? Safety, believe, meaning, purpose, become, grow, belong, relationships, all the above. Be safe, believe, belong, become. or none of the above? By the way, I won't ask it with this group. What's the best thing we can give an employee? Believe, become, belong. None of the above. And the answer is none of the above. Let me say that again. The best thing we can give an employee in today's world is an organization that succeeds in the marketplace. If my company doesn't succeed in the marketplace, there is no workplace. There is no belonging. There is no becoming. There is no growing. Our job in HR is to help create value in that marketplace. We call that outside in. Those are the customers we serve, and that trend shapes the way that we think. I love to put the question or the comment so that. We taught a program at the University of Michigan, and people said, I'm leaving able to build an agenda for leadership, for culture, for compensation, for staffing. And I said, oh, that's not the goal. Put a so that behind it. Leadership, development, compensation, staffing, so that my company succeeds in the marketplace. Trend number one. Trend number two, what do we in HR uniquely contribute to that marketplace success? And I'm going to use the term human capability. And I'm now going to do something that's going to embarrass the distinguished leaders throughout India and myself. What is human capability? In red, it's my people, my talent, human capital. Do we have the right talent to accomplish marketplace success? In blue, it's my organization, my fist. Do we come together as a system? It's not the competence, that's the individual, it's the capability. It's not the workforce, it's the workplace. It's not skills, it's team. And in the middle is leadership. Leadership combines talent and organization, and we've got to have the right leadership. So in HR today, our job in HR is to assure that for any agenda, we have the right talent, organization, leadership, and my forearms represent the HR practices. So Nathan, since you invited me, if you could put your picture back on, I'll just do this with Nathan, and HR is in purple. So if Nathan's listening, Nathan, you're going to model this because you're the leader of NHRD. This is talent. Hold up your fingers. You got talent. You got organization. That's your fist. You got leadership. And then you got the HR services. That's your forearms. And now, Nathan, do the HR dance. Woo! Okay. I was going to have everybody, by the way, you didn't have to go quite that long. It's not that exciting. Thanks, Nathan. You're kind. Why do I go through this? Thanks, Nathan. You can disappear if you want. Let me just share. I love this simple topology. When I'm a business leader or an HR leader and I come to a discussion around the business, how do we innovate? How do we cut costs? How do we go into a new market in Africa, perhaps, or an emerging market? I ask 4 questions. Do we have the right talent? Do we have the right organization? Do we have the right leadership? And do we have the right HR services? That simple topology shapes the future of HR. Now, I'll share with you something that's so exciting. In the United States, and we've just shared this for the last 2 weeks, the Securities Exchange Commission that I mentioned required human capital reporting as something critical that government should look at so that investors can make better decisions. It's material to success. In 2021, 7,000 companies in the United States reported human capital in their 10K, their documents. We tracked that using some very creative machine learning with Amazon as a partner. 5,700 companies had data that we correlated with business outcomes, with employee productivity, with financial results, with stakeholder value, with reputation. For those who study research, what we did is we calculated human capability for 5,700 firms using this topology, the 4 dimensions. We did regressions. The R squares, for those who follow, on productivity are between 0.4 and 0.45. That's R square. For financial performance, between 0.24 and 2.7. And for social responsibility, 3.5 to 4.3. This model works. We can now predict with confidence, are you building human capability, talent, organization, leadership, this stupid thing that drives outcomes? And trend number 3, we in HR need to upgrade ourselves. We've got to build a better HR department, practices, and people. On the left-hand side below, we've looked at 9 dimensions of a great HR department. The reputation, who are customers, our purpose, etc. Our research shows 2 stand out, our reputation and our relationships. On the right-hand side, we've got to have the skills in HR. We've done research with over 100,000 people over the last 30 years. The shift in skills is from nouns to verbs. Business partner, that's a noun. Credible activist, that's a noun. Change agent. Now we look at verbs. Do I or do we as HR professionals accelerate the business, advance human capability, mobilize information, foster collaboration? Those are the 3 trends. HR is not about HR. We create value through human capability, and we upgrade ourselves. So why is that so important? I love the term ideas with impact. I love the concept. Ideas are to discover new insights, theory, research, practice. By the way, I think you've got to have all 3. I think sometimes people say, well, I do this, that's my practice. That's not yet an insight without good theory and research. Or somebody says, I have a theory, it's never been practiced. That's not an insight. Or they lack research. With impact, will it be relevant? Will it be sustainable? Ideas are so critical. We need theory, why it happens. We need research, what happens, and we need practice, how to change what happens based on the phenomena. Why does that matter? The principles of insight. Make ideas your best friends. Make ideas your friends. Wake up with them. Think about them. Nurture them in your quiet moments, in your busy moments. Observe. Look at what's going on around you. What's happening in the world, in India, in Pakistan, in China. What's going on? How do I learn? Imagine. Don't just do what's been done. Create and share. Discuss, debate, dialogue. Get ideas. But then make sure that in green, they have impact, that they're sustainable. We did a book on sustainability. You can look through that list. Will these ideas be sustainable? That's what learning is as it relates to the business. Now, my 3rd bullet, to be quick, what does that have to do with our being here today? Look at Leaders in the Making. Look at this incredible book. Incredible book. I talked earlier about HR competencies being built around verbs. So let me go through the purpose of this book and highlight the verbs that are highlighted. Internalize. The authors, TV Rao and Arvind, want this book to be internalized, real to you. Invoke. Make them passionate. Provoke. Challenge yourselves. I love the verbs. Apply. Take the ideas, don't adopt them, adapt them. How do they apply? Hopefully, readers will be guided. This book is a beacon, it's a guide, it's a direction to their values, their vision. They're called. For those of us in HR, we see our work almost as a calling, almost as a ministry to help, to shape lives. After all, the overarching lesson, learn. Learn. That's what the book is about. Encompass the entire breadth of learning. And finally, impact. I love the verbs. I love the verbs. Those are the same logic of verbs in the HR field. Let's go back up real quick. When we talk about competencies, it's not the noun, it's the verb. Accelerate business at the bottom right. Advance human capability. Mobilize, simplify, foster. This book is literally ideas with impact because the verbs matter. And what's most powerful is the back cover of the book. These are the people who model the insights. There's theory, there's research, and there's practice. And with that, I will end my few remarks. I don't know how, Nathan, you want to handle it. HR reinvention. The best is yet ahead. The best is yet ahead. We will in HR deliver value to all stakeholders. Nathan, that's my piece that I wanted to share. I'll stop sharing and come back to you however you want to use your time. I hope people got an idea that's useful.
Thank you, Dave. That was stellar. In just a few minutes, you got us to go from thinking about nouns to verbs, looking at what these leaders have done in creating this wonderful masterpiece. But more importantly, getting all of us focused on the right things in human resources. Thank you so much. You've been most kind, shuttling between your very busy schedules. Thank you for taking time for us. Dave, I can't thank you enough. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Namaste.
with this, I'm going to request Dr. Arvind Agarwal to kindly take over the proceedings.
Well, thank you, Nathan, and thank you, Dave. That was super energizing message. Reinventing the HR and complete with HR dance. And Dave, you may not realize, you may not know this, but I came into human resource for the second time in the year 2000. I was for almost 10 years in a business role, and from business, I migrated to human resource. And the book I read at that time was The Human Champion, your book. And that was a tremendous bridge for me to transition into human resource role at that time. So I'm ever so grateful, Dave. And I'm so delighted that you agreed to write the foreword and you agreed to be here with us today when we launch this book.
Thank you. I'm honored to join you. Thank you. Thank you.
And, you know, as I was talking about my second inning in human resource function, at that time, I also began to interact with a lot of very, very impressive HR professionals, courtesy National HRD Network. Very impressive. And I was curious, what are these people made of? What has been their life journey? I had a childlike curiosity. And then I came across this tremendous idea which Warren Bennis and Robert Thomas proposed, Crucible of Leadership. And that sort of firmed up what I needed to do. That said, I had never written a book. So I was petrified with enormity of what lies ahead. So I reached out to my guru, Professor TV Rao, a thought leader, and also a serial author. He has, to his credit, more than 60 books. And I said to Professor Rao that if you hold my hand, I'm embarking upon this. Otherwise, this is a dream and I would not move forward. Fortunately for me, I was privileged that Professor Rao agreed, not only agreed, but he was fully engaged. He held my hand all the way through this long journey of a good 6 years. We started sitting in Professor Rao's office in Ahmedabad, brainstorming HR leaders whom we knew, who had done a tremendous job. And that was a long list of almost 70 people. Then we used some criteria. And these criteria were well laid out by Professor Rao in his book called Effective People. Some of those criteria we applied to bring down the number and ultimately identified 30 people that we wanted to have in-depth interviews. And it was our great privilege that all 30 of them agreed. They were patient with us. They candidly shared their life story over several hours. These were 5-6 hours long interviews, mostly in person, except the COVID time when we had to accept interacting through Zoom. My deepest gratitude to all the people that we connected with, and most of you are present here today. Without you, this book would not even be here. And Dave, you're so right that the most important part of the book is the back page, which lists out the 30 heroes and 30 stars who make the book. So my deepest gratitude to all of you. And as we were saying that there are inspiring stories of these 30 leaders. And actually, when we started writing these stories, we did not know what will come out of it, because these are all very strong, unique professionals on their own right. Will we discover any common pattern at all? But to our surprise, we discovered several patterns, several lessons for parents, lessons for teachers in the education system, lessons for administrators in the education system, lessons for managers, lessons for human resource professionals. And we were very excited putting these all together. We also discovered competencies displayed by the HR leaders. We discovered that there are strong values which were practiced by the HR leaders, even in the circumstances when they had to do some unpleasant things. These lessons are all captured in a separate chapter. And I hope that educational institutes in the country use these cases to prepare the next generation of leaders. We also hope that organizations use these cases and these lessons to develop the next generation of HR professionals and the HR profession itself. And while we have covered 30 HR leaders, but in all humility, I must acknowledge that there are many, many out there, perhaps few hundreds, who need to be written about. And like you said rightly, Dave, that the best is yet ahead. Hopefully, this book will trigger more such writing, and we will have stories to read about impactful leaders who are really making tremendous strides on all fronts. And thanks, Dave, once again, for your message that we need to internalize these lessons and develop our own ecosystem and impact the universe of people who are there in our ambit. I would also like to acknowledge my gratitude to everyone present here. This book would not be bestseller unless enthusiastically the book was received by all of you. I'm truly overwhelmed personally. And I would also like to take this opportunity to express my deepest gratitude to National HRD Network, Dhananjay and Nathan, for organizing this launch here today. Truly grateful. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Dhananjay. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Now may I request we invite you to speak.
Dhananjay, your voice got garbled a little bit. Can you please repeat again?
I think he's muted.
He's muted. So Nathan, you want to double up? And
Nathan is also muted.
Nathan is also muted by choice. Right. So maybe I take the liberty to invite Professor TV Rao to
Exactly.
share his thoughts. TV.
Thank you. Thank you, Arvind. First of all, Dave, I think it is so wonderful to have you, and that's a brilliant and path-making launch on the occasion of this book. I think you have given a wonderful set of ideas for us to think about and very well summarized. And you have talked about research and also in terms of theory. I quite often ask myself that did we start with, because when Arvind started, we felt that we're not starting with any framework. We want to evolve one. Yeah. But I think unconsciously we did, like Arvind mentioned, how he was influenced by your human resource champions. I'm also influenced to a large extent by work with David McClelland, and went back to early 60s when he looked at the way the behavior event interview was used to identify competencies in the foreign service agents of US, and later on developed as a movement by Boyatis and then later Spencer and so on. I think Arvind, I don't know consciously or unconsciously, used quite a bit of the BI framework, though we evolved the interview schedule jointly sitting at my office in Ahmedabad. I think at the end of it, when I read these case studies, both jointly, Arvind and I, we converted the crucible experiences into leadership activities. And from there, we derived the indicators of competencies, and we identified about 584. And when I started rereading some of the cases, I'm sure if we'll have to identify these 584, probably will get a little multiplied at least by 1.5 times. Because every time I read, I discover something new about this. So we identified the competencies from 584, brought down to 47 to 20, and 4 families of competencies. And to our surprise, I think I was constantly later. Once we had done that, we went through the RBL groups, I think of your 30 years of research and number of times we have revised. And of course, we use different language, but we found phenomenal amount of similarity between, I think, what we have done. So this makes us proud that we have been able to come up with something which you, over lots of years of research, have comes closer to this. But that's not the main point of this. I think it is Indian, very much many people have talked about in recent times. We got a feedback. The beauty of the book is you're talking of the leaders in the context of country, although many of our leaders are globally, I think, well established and so on. So it has been a pleasure working on this book. I want to thank Arvind for choosing me to be his co-author. I want to thank Nathan for giving this opportunity. And most of all, every single leader, I think many of them I knew, but there were at least a couple of them with whom I did not interact much, and it was great to know all of them. It has been a great lesson, and I keep saying, I think this book is not to be read and kept aside. This book to me is meant to be read, reread, analyzed. If some of them have done wonderful work, use this as maybe benchmark. But as my colleague, one-time colleague Prahlad used to say, always look for next practice rather than the best practice to surpass these leaders. Then I think our purpose is served. And Dave, I think you mentioned it very well, to inspire, to get inspired using this book. Thank you very much, Nathan. Thank you very much, all the leaders, for supplying us. And thanks a lot for all those who are present here and who are encouraging us constantly. Thank you.
Thank you, TV. So
thank you so much, Rao Garu. Thank you very much. Now is the time to take a picture. So, and so what I'll do is I'll request all of you to stay where you are, and Dhananjay, you will help us with taking a picture. So if you can all hold.
Nathan, am I holding it right?
no, upside
Oh,
down.
no, you're, yeah, now this is fine. Now this is fine. Now we can't see your face, Chandra.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Okay, much better. No, but you got to hold it by the side, the way I'm doing it. That'll be easier.
Okay.
Ah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Chandra.
Good. Thanks for the guidance. Right.
Okay. Vineet, you got to do likewise, Vineet. You can only, yeah, by the side. Okay, and keep the book closer to you, not closer to the camera. Okay, that's beautiful. Okay, that's fine. Excellent. Yeah, now it's so much better.
And Visti's got it on the whole background itself.
So VC has to do nothing. He's the smartest of the lot.
Beats us to it always.
Yeah, he's innovative.
So are we on?
Yeah.
Excellent. So the picture is taken. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now I'm going to turn this over to Dhananjay. So Dhananjay, over to you.
Thank you. Grateful thanks, Nathan. And now the privilege is to request the leaders who have been featured in this book. And we have some very tall, amazing leaders who have inspired generations of human resource professionals, not only in India, but across the globe. And I will request, I can see we have Mr. Anil Sachdev. I will request Mr. Anil Sachdev to say a few words, please. Over to Anil.
I think it's a real blessing to be with all of you today, and I thank each one of you for what you have brought to this world. And I think there are lots of young people whom we can also learn from. I learn from the students of our institute every day. And what I notice is three things. One, I notice that the young people are becoming much more conscious of serving and making the world better. The second thing I notice is that they are far more ethical and they ask difficult questions to themselves and to others. And the third thing that I notice is that there is a very genuine desire for them to take care of the family that they are part of and the larger community that they are part of. So I think these are some absolutely amazing things. And what I've just understood in my life is that each time we care to ask ourselves the question, what's the bigger cause I stand for? Then that cause makes us deeply purposeful. And that is in service of the cause. When we become the best followers of the cause, we discover leadership in ourselves. And that's what I have discovered in myself and I've discovered in so many of you. So thank you very much for the life that you lead of purpose. And thank you very much for who you are, each one of you. And thank you for making me a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Thank you so much. I can see Dr. Anil Khandelwal here. If Dr. Khandelwal will speak, please.
Anil, you are on mute.
Kindly unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, I've been traveling, so I have not been able to go through the entire book, but I know what it is all about. First of all, I congratulate Dr. TV Rao and Arvind Agrawal, both the doyens of HR field, that they came together to write this. And it's an excellent combination of the academic and practitioners' authorship, because HR is always in work organization considered some sort of theoretical caricature. My learning in HR profession, which my story brings out, is that it's very, very important to demonstrate use of HR in the business setting. And it is such a great learning to go to field, the field of business, use all the learning of HR and demonstrate the possibility of HR turning around the business. I think that has been my great learning. So my take on HR is to young professionals that please volunteer and bring HR from periphery to the center of work organization. It will be very fascinating personal experience. Leave aside the credibility of HR function in the work organization. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Khandelwal. And we move to Dr. Akil Busrai. Over to Dr. Busrai, please.
Thank you, Dhananjay. First of all, TV Garu and Arvind, congratulations on 7 years of effort, 7+ years of effort. It's very humbling to be part of this book and amongst so many friends as well as luminaries in HR. What struck to me was that all of us, in fact, came from different routes, different paths, and somehow there was a common thread that I could identify, were like 2 or 3 P's. One was there's a tremendous amount of sense of purpose in all the people's story that you read. They had some purpose in mind, whether articulated, not articulated, but there was a clear definition in their mind of what they were heading towards. Second, of course, unmistakably was the passion. The amount of passion that people have showed in what they have done early in life, later in life, how they've changed ordinary situation to a passionate pursuit. And invariably, and it's not a big surprise, that was a high level of people-centric mindset, that it was connected with people. Some people, of course, had a very strong business leanings, which is again driven by the people, what Dave was mentioning earlier. I think this book is more than just reading. And I've started using it with some of my coaches to identify what I call 7 by 7. I've requested them to study the book, identify 7 leadership traits that they want to emulate. And that is the way you can learn, because the book you can read. And fortunately for us, in all these 30 people, I know everyone except 2 I know a little bit on peripheral, but others we know backwards. And to know that these people whom we joke around with, talk around with as a human being, have so much of depth behind them. They've really shaped their lives in a very phenomenal manner. And they are just not ordinary people that you and I talk to every day, that I interact with them. So it has been a privilege to know these people. But I'm sure once we start using this book as a source of learning and emulating, I wouldn't say role modeling, but emulating some of the traits, this book will serve a much deeper purpose in HR. So Arvind and TV Garu, thank you once again for the opportunity and also including this.
Thank you, Dr. Busrai. Now we move to Dr. A.K. Balyan.
Thank you, Dhananjay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the wonderful opportunity to be with the galaxy of HR leaders here. And I'll take the opportunity to compliment the authors and pay my respect for them for a remarkable, wonderful work that they have accomplished in the form of this book. It's so interesting, lucid, and makes so good reading. It's wonderful. I'm also amazed at the kind of work and India-centric kind of work that has been done by authors. Such a comprehensive thing to really develop a framework. When you see a research work, to really develop a framework where they have a set of parameters, and then the journey as a basic part, and then the refined part, and also a kind of a filter of Dr. Rao's effective leadership. And they've used all the kind of new approaches to really come out to identify and focus on some of the leaders there. Most important thing is that I'm amazed at how the authors have really deciphered the kind of characteristics the people were having in long talks, informal talks, discussions, in informal chatting, and they could decipher these interactions into really numerous characteristics, defining the usual ASA factors, the traits, the values, the concepts, and all, and really come out with their kind of analysis. This is a humongous work that they have done. No doubt that it has taken such a long time of over 7 this thing. And what Dr. Rao said, they have identified over 500 odd characteristics, which were classified into really competencies in 2 stages to be around 20. Talking about the value system also, the authors have identified over 240 various indicators of value-based actions, which is wonderful. And they've gone beyond what Professor Parikh's and Professor Rao's earlier Octapace system on that. I'm also, really pointing out that the competency identified by Professor Dave Ulrich on foster the collaboration. The authors have identified to be as a wonderful, important value in this study on this. I'm really amazed at the kind of the way all this analysis has been presented into a wonderful reading. And as the authors have said that, it's really important for all factions of the society, whether it is the education, the teacher, the CEO, the business people, other leaders, all would perhaps benefit by that. And as they say, that they hope to internalize and invoke them in the likes and exhort all them to apply these lessons. That's very important and very, very nice expectation of the authors. And I would like to really, what Dave Ulrich has said, this is to develop their own ecosystem of values. I mean, that's what they're learning from that, their own vision of functions and what they're called for to perform in their lives, professional or social. I think this book has already created a kind of a turbulence in the HR field and is being sort of sought after to my mind. And I'm going to use it wherever I can get the opportunity to interact with HR people, business leaders, and really suggest them and take some of the examples from this. Once again, my compliments and thanks to Professor Rao and Dr. Arvind Agrawal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Balyan. Now we move to Ms. Hema Ravichandran, please.
Thank you, Dhananjay. To make this list, which is written by Professor Rao and Dr. Arvind Agrawal, means really the world to me, because it was Professor Rao's inspired teaching in IIM Ahmedabad which really made me embrace a career in human resources, a decision which I have never, ever regretted. So I have to first say thank you to both of them, because their meticulous research and insightful writing has really ensured that the reader gets a vivid picture of what it takes to be an impactful leader. What do I say about the book? Where do I begin? It is a wonderful balance, a balance of capture and recounting, the yin and yang of theory and practice, of storytelling and data analysis, like someone said, of the common threads behind the collective narrative, of values, attitudes, skills, and experiences that shape the leaders, giving us really a collective wisdom that can read readers, change makers, and maybe aspirants from all walks of life. 3 highlights stood out for me, many more as I revisit the book every time, but I must talk about these 3. How leaders, when confronted with regular routine jobs, turn them into deep learning opportunities, mining data nuggets, diamond nuggets of analytics, which is, I think, something which the new generation should keep in mind when they are actually faced with the monotony, maybe, of a repetitive task. In the same vein, transforming moments of epiphany when a routine conversation with maybe an astute union leader led them to a journey of reflection and unlearning, because they were operating from a position of openness, trust, and authenticity. And finally, how important it is for every leader to self-manage and rejuvenate to be an impactful leader. These and many more are key nuggets, which are all embedded there in the book and make for delightful reading. Finally, the 29 of you leaders who've been represented in the book, I say thank you. Thank you for sharing your journeys with so much openness and vulnerability. And as Adam Quincy Quincy Adams said so profoundly, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So thank you all. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dhananjay. Thank you, NHR.
Thank you, Ms. Hema Ravichandran. Now we request Dr. Marshall Parker, please. Over to Marshall.
Well, thank you, Dhananjay. You know, the opening sentence of this book summarizes the vision that my dear friends Arvind and TV Garu epitomize in their own lives. Leaders contribute to making a difference in the lives of people and thereby to societal progress. And as a generation, a post-independence generation, and we're celebrating 75 years of independence, I think it's very fitting that the book has been launched at this particular time. We are living in very greatly changing times. And I was touched by Nathan talking about J.D. Salinger and about Dave resonating that also, because it talks about giving back. And I think all of us in our little ways have all looked at what is it that we can take forward. The NHRD has played a significant role in making me who I am, and I must acknowledge that over here. But as we go forward, we must continue to inspire younger colleagues to look at what people like Uday Parikh have done and what TV continues to do and what Arvind is striving to do. I think that's very, very important. And I think one of the things that I would like to just share here is that all of us have at some time either coached or mentored younger people. And I think for the 29 or 30 of us, that can we track whether these people have been able in turn to pay forward the mentoring or coaching by getting one of the youngsters to do that in a couple of years. So thank you, NHRD. Thank you, Arvind. Thank you, TV Garu. Dave, you're no longer there on the screen, but thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. And to all my colleagues, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now we move to Dr. N.S. Rajan, please. Kindly unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Dhananjay. A warm hello to all the HR practitioners on the call. Heartiest congratulations to friends and gurus, Dr. Arvind Agarwal and Professor TV Rao for this wonderful book. In fact, it's like a garland of unique flowers, so lovingly woven together by the authors as the binding thread of the Sutradhar. I think for me personally, it's a blessing to belong. And I think the timing is so apt. We are celebrating our 75 years of independence, India's independence. We talk of the theme Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. This set of stories are crucibles that take us back to 75 years. And perhaps in those life stories, what we see is the evolution of HR in India. I've always believed that HR is a noble profession, and we are blessed to be there, serving our roles as alchemists who touch lives and to create organizational success. In fact, I think it is time for us to recognize the fact that each of you who's out there can make a difference to this world. And it's also a travesty in life, and I use the words of Thomas Gray, full many a gem of the purest ray serene, the dark, unfathomed caves of the ocean bare. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness in the desert air. The best of us perhaps is behind us, but the best of you is surely ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan. Now we move to Mr. Rajiv Dubey, please.
Thank you very much, Dhananjay. So the unique power of this outstanding book lies not only in the gripping narrative, the framing of issues and the incisive analysis, but also in the choice of storytelling as the medium of communication. For this lays open the possibility that each reader can formulate their own questions and explore their own purpose, their own answers, and their own truth. So this becomes then a living organism that will draw on the strengths of each other from its multitude of readers in times to come. And that is really the value of this book. Needless to say, I'm privileged and grateful to be part of this book in the company of a galaxy of stars, to be part of this history in the making. My fond hope is that as leaders and readers of this book create value, I don't know how value is defined. That's an open question, but be that as it may, as they go around creating value, they will stay on the path of Satya, Prem, and Seva, truth, compassion, and service, because in the new normal, this is not only a moral imperative and a need of people, but in fact is a business imperative in this highly interconnected world. So grateful thanks and heartiest congratulations, Professor Rao and Dr. Arvind Agarwal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we move to Mr. R.R. Nair, please.
Dhananjay, good evening and thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, but we
Yes,
can't see
indeed.
you, RR.
Yes.
Unfortunately, my video is not getting connected. I tried my best, but at least if you can hear my voice, you can visualize how I look.
Well, we can
Loud
always
and
imagine
clear.
that, but your inimitable voice is very distinctively voice print recognizable. Great to hear you, RR. Great to hear you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Both Arvind and TV are truly change makers from my perspective for conceiving the idea, envisioning the design, conceptualizing the methodology, and determining the approach for this qualitative research study. And I am truly humbled and honored to feature in this book. And as I looked at it, 30 of friends, and most of them I have had the privilege of knowing and continue to be in touch with some of them. We are talking about the 1,000 years of experience that both TV and Arvind have actually captured. I had the sense, Dhananjay, that you will ask me to say a few words. So what I did was that we are a bunch of baked and annulled and hardened senior HR leaders. So I reached out and talked to a cross-section of young HR professionals, BHRMs, and also functional experts in HR function, young ones, because a lot of people who are attending this meeting, for example, represent the younger generation. And I asked a simple question. If you were given case histories of some 30-odd oldies, what would be the sort of main themes that you would be looking for and want to assimilate from such a publication? And I think 5 or 6 things that came out very strongly from them, and I want to share those with you. One is values and beliefs that shape the behaviors of the senior HR professionals. Second, crucible experiences they had undergone, and particularly lessons from failures. Third one is, what are the competencies and mindsets to succeed and grow in this profession? Fourth one is, what type of conflicts and dilemmas that they confronted and choices made? The fifth one is a combination of what sort of inner calling that they experienced, what type of personal vision for the future that they created. And the last one was triggers for contribution to professional growth, and what were the triggers for them to contribute to communities at large. Now, I have a feeling that every HR professional and HR member and organizational members, now that Penguin has given a fancy discount, must actually grab as many copies as possible, distributed to the young generation of HR talent, and ask them to pick up 1 or 2 case studies and really brand the effort of sharing their insights and takeaways in the form of I learn, we, or I read and we learn. That would be a better title to consider. The other important aspect, of course, is that in the last few months, there have been a fair amount of public sort of discourse on the role of CEOs and the CEO's role in partnering with HR leaders. Isn't it important for an HRD to think in terms of having a few conclaves of CEOs where there has to be a dialogue between the HR practitioner and the CEOs to strengthen precisely what Dave Ulrich talked about it in his presentation. So in sum, I would really say that this is a major step, a pioneering step, and I cannot but appreciate and thank 1,000 times for this initiative from both TV and Arvind. They're best friends and wish them good luck and many more years of contribution in the field. Thank you, Dhananjay, for this opportunity.
Thank you indeed, sir. And surely we'll work on those lines. And with this, I request Dr. Santrup Mishra to share his thoughts, please.
Thank you, Dhananjay, and good evening, everyone. As I was listening to Professor Dave Ulrich, he talked about usage of verbs. So I was thinking of TV and Arvind, and I thought the verb that comes to my mind is coming together, you know. And as they were coming together, I was thinking what imagery it creates in my mind. It occurred to me, it seems like as if Pfizer and AstraZeneca came together to crack the COVID code, you know. It came to my mind as if India and US came together to spread the joys of democracy in the world, or Europe and US came together to spread economic development around the world. And lastly, perhaps coming to India, I think TV and Arvind coming together is like Ganga and Yamuna coming together and creating the Prayag of HR in India. I think that's how think of they coming together. I was always in childhood inspired by biographies and autobiographies. Perhaps I said that to Arvind and TV. And I look upon their book as nothing but a compendium of biographies, which will obviously keep on inspiring me and many other people for many years to come. I do not have either the intellectual ability or at least the adequacy of arrogance this evening to intellectually analyze what you all delivered and how uniquely you delivered the research framework, your categories of analysis. But I would say that you created, at least for me, in inviting me to be a part of this book, a few vulnerable moments where I had to kind of talk about myself to you. And you created moments of reflection for me to look back on my life and my work, to ask myself, who have I been? How have I got here? And what perhaps are things that I've picked up along my journey to take it forward. I'm grateful that many people that I have always admired and looked up to for their enormous achievement far beyond me, many of whom are certainly much more senior to me in profession. Along with that, that you consider me worthy of joining this league of people itself is a great honor for me, and thank you for that. The only thing I would say is, from all the lessons that have been there around, and I've always been reflecting about what all you captured, going forward, I think, from inspired by your book and even otherwise from my own experiences, I believe that every HR leader would need far more courage to be able to stand up and build something lasting, sustainable, and powerful than simply having all other things and not having courage is not going to help. And I hope from the deep corners of your book, many people will find inspiration to have the courage to stand up for what is right, to do what is right, and perhaps point out where there is opportunity being missed out to do right. So thank you again for having me as part of your book. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. And we move to Mr. Satish Pradhan, please.
Hi, thank you very much, Dhananjay, and thank you all for joining in this very momentous event. I have not yet fully absorbed or digested the what looks and feels in the first instance to me a path-breaking book, and truly a tribute to our generation. The two of the doyens of our field have put together what augurs extraordinarily well for the profession and for the wider world of knowledge for ourselves. So first of all, I must admit that while humbled, I am mindful of the honor of inclusion in this august list of outstanding HR professionals of our generations. And also for the opportunity that Arvind in his conversations with me provided for a reflective pause on my own journey. A very major contribution to my own reflective learning. This is about the book, so let me talk a little about the book that I can superficially. I think the cases or the case studies that as they're called are amazingly curated narratives with two very, very important aspects. An object of the and objectivity to the research when laced together has created very, very interesting, insightful, and amazing. The rigor of the research, as has been said, is hardly my place to comment, except that it comes through often in a subtle but very palpable manner in the analytical distillate of ground-up patterns posited in the later chapters on competencies and lessons, which I think are awesome distillates. The most distinguishing aspect that I found in my primary read was that the book combines humanness with great insight and rigorous science. Rarely have I seen these three threaded together in an almost magical manner that I find in this book. Daunting as the tome is in terms of its physical appearance and size, it is, in my view, a great inspiration and a beacon for the future of work of this kind in both its substance and its methodology. And I salute both of you, Arvind and TV, for an amazing book, which I'm sure will do very well. Thank you.
Thank you. And we move to Dr. S. Chandrasekhar, please.
I won't thank you, Dhananjay, because I was fearing this. And after such wonderful narratives, there is hardly anything I say. But one thing you did well is you called me a little later. So in half fear, I was also putting my thoughts together as to what should I say. So first of all, I think three perspectives I have. One is as a novice and wannabe academic, I find an interesting thing coming true in this book, which is the blend of theory with practice. So a practitioner joining hands with a professor is what we ideally in the academic world need to create more and more. And we see a great evidence of how such Ganga, Yamuna, as Santrup said, coming together creates an interesting opportunity of reflection and distillation. Second is that too much in life I have been fed with the Western narrative of competencies being intellectual constructs that seems to be just verbalized through some analysis of behaviors and situations. But I believe this book tells us that competencies are actually outcomes of crucibles of experience, and that the more you have been put in fire and the more you have had a chance to burn in it, and the more you have reflected on that burning, you probably developed competencies that outlast you and probably provide some guidance to others. And I hope that is one of the interesting contributions to the very way in which we can capture and build competency and understanding of that. It is not something that you learn only on the head. It's something that you grow through your heart, is how I have seen it. And this book kind of endorses that thought for me. Finally, my takeaway, as I said, is that it is certainly a great effort at trying to sort of take the lives of people and distill them into what could be learned from it. In that spirit, I run a course at ISP called the Future CHRO. So I have decided to give this book as a gift to each of the participants. In the first batch, we have 50 of them, and each of them will get one. And my ask to them is, don't be enamored by the names, positions, status, celebration. Don't think getting into this book was a great thing that these people could do and somebody else cannot. Like every one of us who's in this book humbly recognizes that there are out there many, many more people who probably are far more, competent and far more capable. It's just some kind of a mechanism of selection that sometimes, literally like a lottery, that brings you into this. So do not see this book about who is good and who is bad, who's great, who's not, but see it as what has life done to people and what have people done with their lives. And tell me in your class back, as you an HR professional, what would you take away from this and what would you do differently? Because celebration of the past is far more important, far less important than anticipation of the future. And so if the past doesn't build the future, there is no point in writing biographies and celebrating those who are gone. That's almost like writing on the tomb, which I don't want yet to belong. So in whichever way I say, whether I see it personally, when I was invited by Arvind on a mail, I thought it is something kind of a joke, but I thought then it became serious when Dr. TV Rao said we must meet at Taj Hotel. I felt flattered, to be honest. Felt, oh my God, I am being really considered seriously by a guru whose book, HRD Missionary, has deeply influenced me. And I have not remained a missionary. Several times I've lapsed into a mercenary. But having said that, the book continues to inspire me. And then you saw that it came out. Finally, when you see yourself in the company of 29 others, you realize it's not that sense of joy. It's sense of humility, sense of gratitude, sense of feeling that, oh my God, do I belong here? Was I really that useful? But on that very somber note of reflection, I believe the book will serve a great purpose. And thank you, Arvind and TV. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar. We move to Mr. Sridhar Ganesh, please. We move to Mr. Shrikant Gattu. Please go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Thanks for calling me, and I think you have called me at the right moment. Because I am first and foremost, I'm thankful to God. God is very kind. Because when I look back on many of the things which are done, and I realize that it's not me, but somebody else, who is higher than me, who has really worked through. It's something like what Lord Krishna said to Arjun, saying that, look, I have already killed all these people. At the beginning of Mahabharata, all you have to do is to just go and do the job. So something like this happened with me. Most of the things God chose me as an instrument. That's the way I put it. Whenever I look at everything, what I realize that I got to work with some outstanding and brilliant people. Both as my seniors as well as my colleagues and team members. And if at all there is something in the book, this is a teamwork which has been done. But the format of the book requires to build stories around the person. So therefore, I am there at the center of this. But it's not I, but it is actually the entire organization which has really worked through this. To this, I would also add to what Professor Dave Ulrich said in the beginning. That is the individual leader and the organization which is coming together, which really does the wonder. Whenever I was comfortable in my career, something happened which sort of made me jump, and I was put in a situation which was not of my asking. Like after almost 20 years in HR, I was heading the HRD function, and one fine morning, the chairman of the company called me and get into an enterprise-wide SAP implementation. And I told him, look, I do not understand a word of this. And he said, that's perfectly the place to start. So he looked at this entire thing as a people challenge more than technology. And that's where I got to contribute in this company as a part of the larger team. Similarly, without even selling 1 liter of oil, I was asked to go and lead the lubricants business of Bharat Petroleum. And that was another challenge which came in. And again, perhaps as I was getting comfortable, I was thrown into a situation which was a crucible experience. And some great good things happened at the end of that. So all I would say is that is simply, something which is higher than me, which is worked through this entire thing. It's not me. Even when it came to getting into the board, in informal discussions which were there with the chairman of the company, I said, look, everybody will say as to why they are the best person. I'm really asking you, please choose who is the best for the company. And don't look at my own this thing. If somebody else, I'll be very happy. So he, in the judgment of the him as well as the Public Enterprise Selection Board, I was put there. So again, I will say it was always something I tried to evade as much as possible, but it was always pushed on me. And in this case also, there are 29 other people who are excellent leaders, and I am only here reflecting the glory amongst them. So thank you very much, and thanks to Professor TV Rao and Dr. Arvind Agarwal for considering my ordinary journey as of some value and making me part of this entire experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now may I request Mr. Yogi Sriram, please. Over to Mr. Yogi Sriram.
Thank you, Dhananjay. I feel very privileged to be here this evening and also to be included amongst the 30. My own story being incarnated in a book was never imagined by me, so it's really a wonderful feeling. But since a lot has been said about the book, I want to say a little bit about the authors. And what I say about the authors is inspired by the feeling with which the book has been written. First of all, Dr. TV Rao. I don't know whether he will recollect, but I did share with him earlier that I bought his book on developing motivation through experiencing, he and Dr. Uday Parikh, way back in 1982, the first edition. And I must say, it gave me a very strong foundation for my early days in learning and development in NTPC and other companies, where I did a lot of work on team building and so on. Absolutely outstanding book. The later edition came in 1991, and I bought it for 110 rupees, the second edition. And chapter 5 and chapter 10, which are all about processing team building and processing intergroup collaboration, is still so fresh in my mind, absolutely outstanding. So thank you, TV Rao Garu, for giving me so much, and thank you for including me in the book. Dr. Arvind Agarwal, what can I say? First of all, I couldn't figure out why he isn't in the book himself. So I have taken it upon myself, if he gives me permission, to interview him and write a little monograph, because very rarely do you see people who've been leaders in HR and TQM in Modi Xerox, and then come back as a P&L leader, a CEO of a large business in escorts, and then go back to, or come back, not go back, come back to HR and RPG in a very high position. And I'm a great admirer of Arvind. I've spoken to his PhD guide, who's also a friend of mine, Dr. Shiv Ganesh Bhargava, who has lots and lots of praise for him. Coming to the book, I think the book is a very careful, curated collection of stories which normally people would not have shared. I think the skill of Arvind has been to, in his own very soft and convincing and impactful demeanor, to almost yank out and help people reflect on their own stories. And what I liked about his style was he asked me to also go through the story that he had taken down, which I did. And I found the diligence with which he and Dr. TV Rao have written this book and put it together is absolutely tremendous. So the book has a special place in my bookshelf in office, Arvind and TV Rao Garu. I forgot to bring it today. I'm at home. I came home early for this. But it has a special place. And let me tell you, everybody who comes into the room notices the book first and then me. It's it's really doing the rounds of doing extremely well. I want to end this by saying that HR is going through a bit of a, I would say, at a junction, a bit of a change, which is unprecedented. And I think the right titration of personality and characteristics and competencies that an HR person needs to have. Many of them are going to replace this 30 as we go ahead with edition number 2 and 3 and 4, is standing up to adversity and standing up and not losing one's cool. So I'd like to end with a few lines from my favorite song, The Boxer by Simon and the Garfunkel. I'm just a poor boy, though my story's seldom told. I've squandered my resistance for a pocket full of mumbles, such are promises, all lies in jest. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And before we move to Mr. Vineet Kaul and Mr. Visti Banaji, each one of us, we remember late Professor K.K. Sinha. In absentia, we convey our respect and regards to him. He's not with us, but he's part of this book, and I'm sure everyone remembers him for the things which he has done for each one of us. With this, I request Mr. Vineet Kaul, and after that, last but not least, Mr. Visti Banaji to share his views. Over to Mr. Kaul, please.
Thank you, Dhananjay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think a lot of my colleagues have already spoken, so I would not like to repeat, but 2-3 things. First of all, grateful thanks to both Dr. Arvind Agarwal for the, if not anything, the sheer patience to listen to and distill information from so many dialogues. For example, with me, 2 meetings. Professor Rao, the least, said, "You've been a doyen always for all of us." And I shared with you initial learning in the first workshop I attended, where L&T and SBI were presenting the first time HRD rolled out in any organization in the early 80s. So you were there and late to Pariji. So a great piece of, how should I call it, literature for the fraternity in terms of great work that you all have done. I don't think there are any, I fall short of words to basically describe the way you put in so much of hard work and really labor, as they call it, in putting this together. So there are no words left, but thank you very much for giving this to the entire community and the world, I would say. So thank you very much. And of course, really humbled to include me. And well, frankly, it was a reflection of sorts when Arvind made me speak about myself, because to me, it was the first time I was talking or sitting through, and just it was a flow that helped. More so when I see the colleagues here, and there are people, seniors like Mr. Arun Joshi, etc., whose workshops I've attended. My managers, as I said, whether it's Visti, Anil, or Dr. Santanu Mishra, so much of association with many of the colleagues here as friends, as fellow colleagues, and as seniors. It has been a learning journey, even in the past, and even more now that the book is there, because many insights which I was unaware of are coming forth as learning. So really wish to thank this entire group. And today's session, it's good it's being recorded. One would like to listen through again, because very major nuggets of learning and wisdom have come through this session today also. So thank you very much. In as much as I am concerned, I think everything happened mostly because of the managers and the organizations that gave us the opportunity. And I really feel anyone would have really responded in some matter and got things done. So that's very much the teams, whether it's the people one worked with or managers. Well, managers always, and organizations were interested in outcomes. So whatever work went in delivering them had to be done. So I think those are all opportunities for which really thankful to all. And again, thank you very much, Arvind and Professor TV Rao, for great work that you have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you indeed. And we acknowledge the inspiring yet silent presence of Arun Joshi and Anand Naik with us in this. And over to Mr. Visti Banaji, please.
Thanks, Dhananjay. This book by Arvind and TV is a remarkable achievement. I would like to mention what it has meant for me before speaking about this truly outstanding project. My gain started right from the time Arvind's gentle probing brought back memories, decisions, and debts that had remained buried for far too long. My benefit from the book multiplied manifold once I read it and gained insights even about friends I had known for almost half a century. Anil perhaps is the oldest friend in this group, but Vinit not so much later. As a result, an already well-knit community has become even closer and capable of greater cooperation. But going forward, there is no question that those of us who figure in the volume must up our games and reinvent ourselves, because by telling our stories, the authors have reset our achievement counters to zero. But enough about us. Let me say something about our wonderful authors. To start with, Arvind and TV created a robust but flexible framework using which they labored hard to record life stories in their essence. Then they applied a
Visti, you're on mute.
Have I been on mute throughout?
No. Yes.
Okay, so let me just start from the part where I'm talking about the authors, and apologies for going mute. So to start with, Arvind and TV created a robust... I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
And they recorded life stories. But then they applied...
RR is lighting up, so something's coming through from RR.
Yeah, okay, I think he's gone mute.
Yeah.
So this magical filter, I can best describe by an analogy from electronics. The PNP, or positive, negative, positive transistor, is a fundamental component in electronics. Arvind and TV made a positive, learning positive, or PLP device to block titillating details while letting the inspiration and education come through without stint. And I think that's fundamental. Also, I think this book pioneers a new type of authorship that I believe will change future writing on management leadership. Biographies, there are aplenty, but almost none of them make comparisons and extract lessons from such a sizable collective. Let me end by asking Arvind and TV to remedy the single and glaring gap in their book. Their own stories are missing from it. I therefore urge them to start on their combined or separate autobiographies tomorrow. Thank you.
Well done, Visti.
Okay, it was to end with Visti. I just couldn't hold myself. So I'm going to say just a couple of lines. Number one, I think what this book did for me at home is that when my wife saw my name, she started to have a little bit more respect, which means that she now brings the plate from the kitchen. The rest of it I've got to handle myself. So that's what. And I have the greatest regard and respect for the authors who got me this amount of respectability at home. On a more serious note, I was going through this process of listening to each one of you. And I now understand that this is my crucible moment. Because I think in each one of what we have spoken, there is one value that I can take from each one of you. Vinit said it very well. I'm glad that this is being recorded, because then I can rewind and possibly pick out some more. This is my crucible moment because I could learn so much. I got to learn and earn my leadership every day. Last but not the least, I'm very happy to see the people who are here on the call, beyond the people who have to be on the call. Many of them are here. In some way, they are the big cheerleaders for us. When Santrup speaks about courage, it starts to evoke, possibly provoke things that I ought to be practicing and doing every day. Crucible moment. I'm hoping that each one of us, just beyond this call, would find their own essence in the book. A story is important. And I laud the authors because they collected stories. Why is a story important? A story is important because you and I see ourselves in each one of these stories. That in some parts, it just collects a part of us. So on that note, thank you, TV. Thank you, Arvindji. You guys are just outstanding. Thank you so much. And with this, I'm going to hand it over for a short closure from Dhananjay. Thank you.
And I'll carry the loving sentiments of everybody to Dwarka, whose 75th birthday we are celebrating today. And in a few minutes, I will be meeting him, and I'll convey your love to Dwarka as well.
Yes, please do convey.
Please do. Please do.
That will be very nice.
Thank you. Radhika, you are there. May I request you to talk about how we can access the book, because everything has been said.
Of course. Thank you so much, Dhananjay. Thanks, everyone. It has been a great privilege to be a part of this call. Honestly, even after editing, reading the whole book, I didn't think there was anything left to say. But honestly, trust me when I say that I have learned more and more. I also must tell you a little bit of background. When Professor Rao first told me about this book, I was very worried. It was almost 200,000 words. And I think Professor Rao kind of understood that, it may not work for a trade publisher like Penguin. But when I read it, when I went through it, it seems lengthy. I heard the words daunting tome, and that is correct when you see the look of it. But it is a contradiction because it moves so fast, because the writing in itself is so pithy and clear that it's an absolute contradiction. So, of course, and then, Dr. Agarwal, of course, they actually trimmed it down a little bit. So it's much crisper and, it's an absolute wonder, what this book has been able to do. The orders have been fantastic. You all have been really supportive, and you can find the book on Amazon. You can download it on Kindle. You can buy it on any of the airport stores. Basically, anywhere that books can be bought, you should be able to find it. In case you can't, please do feel free to complain and let us know. We constantly strive to make books available wherever we can. But thank you so much. It has been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Radhika.
Thank you, Radha. And in the world of T20, our vote of is only to share our gratitude to each one of you. Thank you each one for spending your time here and available live on YouTube. And we really look forward to your guidance, your support in building the profession, the country, and the large. Grateful thanks to each one of us. And
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Arar, we can see you now.
Thanks, everyone.